We start to have this regulatory issue start to bite into the equity market this morning. We see it in the Facebook price. But as far as your base case for the sell is concerned, the idea that we reach saturation at some point as far as advertising growth goes, have we started to see that bite in a material way yet?
No, I mean, I think you're going to start to feel it towards the end of this year and into next year. I mean, the reality is that it'll be really hard to grow more than 20% in 2019. And when you look at something like this, I mean, these serve as headwinds, essentially. And when you look at, here's a practical illustration of what could catalyze that slower growth. If there is less use of data in the way that Facebook has used data because of things like GDPR in Europe, and maybe something like GDPR comes into effect in the United States, is it possible that it takes more inventory to satisfy the goals that advertisers have, and therefore they end up with less revenue as a result? That's a very plausible outcome from something like this, and that can contribute to slower revenue growth. But the reality is that the total advertising pie is only so big, digital can only be so big, and Facebook and Google can only take so much share. And I don't think most investors are fully accounting for that.
Brian, just quickly before we let you go, just to go back to the political situation, the squeeze from Brussels is a tax story. The squeeze potentially from Washington, D.C. is a regulatory story. Which squeeze are you most concerned about?
Boy, I think that the European squeeze is going to be more significant in the near term. It's not clear that there's political will in the U.S. To do anything other than maybe rake them over the coals when you look at Massachusetts Attorney General. It's not as if the Republicans are going to be hauling Facebook in to threaten to tax them or threaten to limit their data use. It's not likely, at least. But Europe is a much more realistic scenario where they could try to throw the book at them with GDPR. They can try to unify on taxes within Europe. And so I think that would be a more realistic threat regulatory-wise.